Well, it's Monday, everyone. Well, good morning to you. This morning we'll be in Philippians still, which kind of hinted that I wanted to travel through the whole book with you. But what's interesting is chapter number 4, where we'll drop in today. It'll lead right up to a verse or two that I read last night to open our prayer meeting. But what I want to start with is just kind of combing through the first few verses, because he uses some pretty key information, or at least some descriptions of believers in the church. And so in verse number 1, he talks about the whole church, the whole brethren, the body of believers, calls them beloved and longed for, his joy, his crown. But he urges them to stand fast in the Lord. And so he knew that hey, there's going to be a day where standing fast in the Lord might begin to be compromised, and he wanted to make sure they understood that hey, don't let anything compromise your brotherhood of standing in the Lord together. The reason why I know that is because it looks like he apparently in verse number 2 talks to two leaders and says, hey guys, no matter where you're at on things, have the same mindedness about the faith and about the work. Don't let yourselves become prideful or high-minded, but be like-minded. He goes on and in the next verse, he says that he entreats those two guys also to be true yoke fellow, meaning that laboring together. Let's be a team. Let's pair up. Let's lead out. And then he goes on in verse number 3 about getting the work done. He says, let's be fellow laborers. And then he turns the corner and says, here's how you're going to do it. In verse number 4, he says, rejoice in the Lord always. And again, I say, rejoice. He says, let your moderation be known unto all men. The Lord is at hand. He says, hey, look, guys, there's a lot to be said about leading out. But leading out together is going to be unique in the world in which you live. There's division everywhere. Everybody divides. Everybody does everything that suits themselves. And so that's normal. He says, but let's break out of the fleshly pattern that says, hey, I didn't get my way, so I'm going to go another way. He says, let's stay together. And the way we're going to do that is to rejoice in the Lord. If we will keep our mind on the Lord and rejoicing in him, he doesn't say, well, every once in a while, throw up some rejoice words. He says, no, let your heart be always in a state of rejoicing. And then he says, again, I say rejoice. Everything you're going through is God ordained. Whether he is doing it for your correction, for your direction, or if he's just saying, hey, look, I need you to be a reflection of me through a difficult time. He says, rejoice in it, that at least you know for sure that I have a plan for it. It's doing something, whether you can see it or not. And then he says, hey, let your moderation or your even temperament be known to all men. Let them know. It's not just, oh, I don't do this and I don't do that, or I do less than everybody else. No. He's saying, let your even temperament, your lack of knee-jerk reaction, or your lack of, I'm just speaking my mind and I'm just saying it how it is. He says, let all that disappear. That's flesh. He says, let your moderation be known to all men, because we're running out of time. Individually, we're running out of time. The world is running out of time. The lost are running out of time. It says, so in all of that, be careful for nothing, verse number 6, but in everything, by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. And the peace of God, which passeth all understanding, shall keep your hearts and minds through Christ Jesus. And so I just want that to be an encouragement to you this morning, that no matter what you're going through, you can stay like-minded. You don't have to divide. You can stay unified. Labor together. Rejoice always. Don't just rejoice when something that you demand from God happens. Rejoice when you don't get what you feel like God should give you, because you realize that God's in charge, not you. So I want to encourage you this morning, let your week start off with rejoicing, recognizing that all is in his care, and then remember that by prayer, supplication, with thanksgiving, which is that rejoicing, let your request be made known to God, and the peace of God. You notice it didn't say, and everything you ask for, you'll get. It says, and the peace of God will guide your hearts. Let peace be the guide of your heart instead of fear. Let peace be the guide of your heart instead of frustration and anger. Let the rejoicing dictate the peace that you have in your heart. I hope that helps you get your week off to a great start. Have a blessed day.